Hama the Kombucha Mama. Welcome to Mama Mondays. I am so excited. That song is in honor of my guest today. I'm going to bring her on right now, Lydia Joy. Let's get her on here. Joy is someone I've been working with and who I've been friends with for a long time, dear friend of mine. And she helps people dial in their mineral content through a variety of modalities. And I have been really fortunate to be working with her, and I'm dialing in my own modalities. I've got my saltwater right here. Yummy, yummy. Hi, Lydia. Welcome to Mama Mondays. How are you today?
I am cracking up at you, my girl.
We got to sing.
Yes.
Sing our love of life.
Yes. Love it. I love it. I love your song. You got the core players.
Yes. And so let's first chat about how we know each other. I think we know each other through the sort of real food world from many moons ago. We met in person for the first time, even though we were friends online for a while, at the NTA conference. Was that 2016, 2017? I feel like it was when my book came out.
16 maybe, I think. I feel like. Yeah.
And then during the pandemic, we were blessed to become friends and have been trading voicemails on Telegram for quite a while, which has just been such a fun way to connect with people. I don't know if other people out there are using that platform, but I certainly love it to keep in touch and leave messages for people I love, like yourself.
And sing songs to each other.
Sing a lot of songs.
Yeah, a lot of songs.
But, part of why I feel like I reached back out to you was my good friend Jenny McGrother from Nourish Kitchen recommended your services to me. Hi, Malego Mezgi. I don't know if I said but she recommended your services to me, and I got, HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis. And you know how information is. Like, I got that report, I listened to that information, I implemented a couple of things, and then I did a retest, a year and a half, 2 years later, and now it's just like it's percolating even more. And in fact, my body had already been moving more into alignment before that second test result. But why don't you just let people know, what is hair tissue mineral analysis? Why do you do this funky thing? Talk to us about what you do.
This funky thing. Well, it's only funky because we don't know about it, but so hair tissue mineral analysis is basically you're taking a piece of tissue instead of, from your body, which is more invasive. It's just the hair, and it's reflective of like a 3-month window of your mineral pattern in your body, because the hair is a tissue where we deposit minerals and heavy metals as well. So what's really cool about it is you get this information, and instead of, the allopathic model of like, I have a symptom, give me a Band-Aid, we're really digging into the body's biochemistry, and we're looking at the systems and the organs and the tissues and the glands and how they're operating as a whole versus like picking one thing and stabbing at all these parts of our body. Oh, I have thyroid issues. Oh, my hair's falling out. Oh, this, oh, that. And we're like segregating ourselves into parts. And then before we know it, we're all in burnout trying to figure out what's wrong with us, and taking this haphazard approach, right? So what the hair test really does for me personally to help someone is see this bigger picture of like, okay, where do you have energy leaks in your systems? And what's like the priority of balancing, or how can we create like a balancing act to bring everything back versus picking off symptoms? Because if you get into the roots of things and shore the body back up, many of these things will just start to disappear. So it's really cool to me to look at it that way, and it's very eye-opening to most people because it's kind of like you've done an astrology reading and you're like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. I know this about myself, but I wasn't sure about this and that. And how I interact with people and blah, blah, blah. You know, if you've done an astrology reading, you're like, wow, that was so revealing and helpful. And so this can be similar in that it's very revealing, clarifying, validating to people to see it all in one place, to know how to move forward.
So it's like hair astrology. Just kidding.
Sure.
It is really revealing, and I'm all about the root cause, because for me, you know, part of why I love kombucha and why I think of it as a gateway to holistic healing is that it directly connects you with your gut, which is the root of everything in your body, right? Yes. I know people like to think this brain's in charge, but the reality is it's this one here in our gut that's really performing all of the activities. It's creating the serotonin. It's creating the dopamine. I always thought there was like a little pharmacy in my brain dispensing these great, you know, little happy chemicals. Come to find out, it's all coming from my gut. So it makes sense that what we're putting into our bodies is directly impacting our health. And just to talk about minerals for a minute, you know, the day that I met kombucha way back in 2003 in San Francisco was also the day that I met Soleil, which is a pink Himalayan salt crystal soaked in water. And I was like, why are they drinking salt water? Salt is so bad for you, right? I was still sad at the time, standard American diet. And, you know, I had I'm from Chicago, and they had a Morton's salt factory, and it was next to the highway. And you would see these piles and piles, these mountains of salt outside exposed to whatever pollution was coming by. And it was just like, is this right? Is this good? This seems really weird. But just turning around that thought process around salt. So to give us a little insight, what is salt? Why is it so important for us? And what kinds of salt are better for us to be consuming?
Yeah, well, I guess if you think about the human body fluids, like if you've ever shed a tear, I mean, we all have, right? And it's salty if you taste it, right? And any body fluids have that saltiness to it. We really are... Boogers. Did you say boogers?
I did. Ew, they're salty.
Taking me back to being a kid. Gross. So we basically, our cells are sitting in an ocean inside of us, right? And that's got a lot of minerals, salt included, and potassium. And so it's literally vital and essential for our function, our physical function. Like, we literally cannot live without it. We need it for many processes in the body. We need it to help us make our digestive juices. We need it for the water to even be carried inside the cell so we're properly hydrated. So many things. Like, we could spend days talking about this. It's so important. And if you know anything about ancient civilizations and cultures, is like they treated and prized salt more than they did money and gold because they couldn't live without it. And it was used...
Salary. The word salary is from the word salt, because people were paid in salt. That's how incredibly important and valuable it is. We still use that word today,
but we don't
although
know,
we're getting...
Yeah, we lost the meaning. We don't understand it because we've been taught salt's bad for you. Don't eat salt. And we've been reconditioned over time since we've been alive, right?
Right.
You know, salt's bad. It'll give you a heart attack. Salt, blah, blah, blah. You know, all the things. But there's a backstory to that, is that sodium in processed food is the problem, not the actual real salt from nature, from the ocean, from salt mines, from even you can there's certain plants that break down more into salt if you dry them and toast them and crumble them and things like that. And so the ancients knew all this, and they knew ways to access salt wherever they were on the planet. But since industry and processing and all of that, you know, we've lost sight of all of this stuff, right? So, so you got to eat your salt. And it's funny because whenever I meet with someone, they maybe have already kind of sort of figured this out, because people that work with me usually have done some of their research and homework. And they're like, oh, I eat so much salt. And I'm like, well, let's check. So we do a little game where I say, you know, take your good sea salt, whether it's the Himalayan pink can be good. You do want to be kind of looking at the companies and maybe seeing their reports on what's in the salt, just to check and see. That's a whole conversation for another time. But not every pink salt in the grocery store is good. Some of them are kind of crappy. So you want to be looking into your salt more thoroughly because it's going to be a crucial part of, keeping you alive and healthy. So Celtic's good. There's a company called Crucial 4. I love Saltworks. Lots of options, but you do want to make sure you're like paying attention to what you're purchasing because it's not all created equal, unfortunately. So that said,
consider the source.
Yeah, consider your source. Sourcing is always important. I mean, we don't want like too much metal or whatever in your salt. So we think we eat enough salt once we get into this real food world because we're craving it, right? We're like, oh my gosh, I can't get enough salt once you figure out like it's actually good for you. But are you getting enough for your physiological function, as well as many people are already burned out, so they're having a hard time holding on to their salt, right? Their kidneys, their adrenals maybe aren't up to par, and so they got to get way more salt than they think. So I love those cute little pinch bowls. I'm a foodie, so I get a little pinch bowl. Measure out your salt, about 3/4 of a teaspoon for the average adult. Some people need more. If you're on meds, that's a whole nother conversation. You still can do salt, but you maybe need to be a little more careful and balanced. And then you put it.
Well, and I thought that I was making salt water, so I love salt water with a little lemon. I would just, a few twists, and I'm like, I'm drinking salt water. And then when we went over my results, and you're like 3/4 of a teaspoon, I'm like, oh, I don't measure anything because I'm a witch, whatever. And I started measuring out the 3/4 teaspoon. I'm like, whoa, that is definitely saltier than what I had been drinking, but I really love it. Like my body craves it. It wants that salt. I always put a little citrus in there. That's just me. I love to get my citrus, but you're right. I mean, anything we're talking about here, of course, you can do your own research, but it's best to work with a practitioner or someone who's trained in this modality, which is something that you are, and lots of different types of people are trained in this modality. So, of course, anyone who's on a medication or working with someone, you just want to make sure that you're connecting with them so that this information is applicable to you too. Right. But for most people, like you're saying, as long as you have a good quality salt, 3/4 of a teaspoon in a glass of water, it'll really change the way you think about it. And, as a slow oxidizer, which is my metabolism, one of the things I have had issues, which of course kombucha helps with, but kombucha is not an end point, it's an entry point, right? It's not the only thing we do, it's something we do to create awareness and of course keep everything moving correctly, but then we need to branch out because we're a whole entire human body, not just a single thing. So, I just found that adding that salt has been so helpful. And then the other mineral, if we're ready to move away from salt, magnesium, which, oh yeah, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something because people take things and run with them. So the 3/4 a teaspoon is spread out through the day. So it's more of like 1/4 teaspoon per quart. So like say you drink 3 quarts of water a day and you do it all at once. Okay.
That's only good.
Well, that might be okay. It might be okay.
Well, and then I add a little more water to it. So it is intense, and I drink part of it, and then I add more water to it, and then I drink a little bit more. So I'm getting that nice hit first thing in the morning, because I think what you said is it helps to create hydrochloric acid, which is something that I need more of because I need more of those digestive juices to help break things down. Because even though I drink kombucha, it's still something that I'm lacking. Hi, Mazaika.
Yeah.
And so, yes.
Just a little clarity, that's all.
Good to have that clarity. Although I love the flavor of it, so it's so good. And then I just add more water to it. So I'm enjoying it. And so then I was saying magnesium. So magnesium is one that I really love the supplement you recommend. However, it does have an interesting flavor profile. Right. And so I know you've also talked about topical applications, but just tell us a little bit about magnesium and what it's good for and why it's something I know you could spend all day talking about magnesium, but what's the quick?
The quick, oof, yeah. So I think the big thing about magnesium is if you if you understand where we're at collectively in the mineral realm, in terms of like we've lost them in our water, in our soil, we have all these toxins making it harder and harder for us. And magnesium's role is very stabilizing and balancing. We also need it for a lot of our energy production, and it really helps regulate our other core macro minerals as well. So to me, it's like it gives you energy, but it also chills you out. It's like the perfect way we're actually supposed to feel. We can regulate between energy and chill, right? Nobody knows what that feels like in this culture. So magnesium is really imperative because we can burn it up very quickly where we're at currently. Does this make sense? So like, because we've had so much calcium fortification, which those two minerals need a delicate dance and balance, which we were basically lied to about. We all are kind of in a discrepancy at this point with magnesium in mind. So it's not repleted in our soil. Most people don't eat enough vegetables. We all have too much stress. I could go on and on. So, and we don't absorb well. We don't like digest and assimilate our nutrition well. So magnesium is kind of like the master mineral in a way. It's like the orchestra conductor of your other core minerals. So I always start there because usually people can benefit from it quickly. Now I won't encourage anyone to stop there, but pretty much everyone can start there and receive some benefit from it. And so, yeah, there's many ways we could take it, consume it. Obviously, food first would be amazing if we could do it. Most of us can't do food only to get enough. So we have to add it either topically or orally in a supplemental form. I like topically a lot because many people have impaired digestion, and magnesium is absorbed best in our small intestine. So it's nice to do it topically because we bypass the digestive process and we get it right in there. And my goal is always to get people to feel it as quickly as possible with as little as possible taken, you see? So, but yeah, Hannah and I, we kind of messed around with like trying to add it to kombucha, and it's definitely a good medium for like the liquid ionic magnesium. But you have to be, it's only a little is tolerable. I find.
Well, and I do think that there is an opportunity for kombucha producers, or even making it at home, to add a little salt, add a little magnesium, add some minerals, because I think that this, as our awareness continues to grow, right, like they can't keep all the secrets forever, and people continue to thirst for more knowledge, literally and physiologically, and we return to the wisdom of the ancestors, and, this is something that we have great modern tools that help us understand and get more specific about dialing these things in, because I think you're absolutely right. It's so easy to want to go to the Band-Aid solution. Oh, I took this test and this hormone is here, and so therefore I need more of that hormone. But we're not thinking about how are all of these things made in our bodies to begin with. And if we go all the way back to those foundational building blocks, that's what's going to create the best, most impactful impact, the most impactful impact on our bodies. And but I do think that there is an opportunity as fermentationists for us to put some more of these types of minerals and nutrients back into our bodies, because you're right, the soil is depleted, the veggies, even if you're eating them, are depleted, the water is treated, like just all of the ways in which we used to naturally get these minerals have been literally stripped away.
Correct.
And so getting them into our diets, or topically, like you're saying. Now, some folks, they don't like the topical because it can feel a little sticky or weird. Where do you recommend people do that? And then I like to put it in my bath too. So that's one of my favorite ways to get the magnesium topically. But if you're using a spray or a lotion, what's the secret tip so that it's less
secret sauce?
Yeah, always.
Well, I think first you have to know why you're doing it and really be motivated, because then you'll bear with anyhow, right?
You're so right.
But at the same time, we don't want it to be like annoying and you know, so I think there's a couple ways you can do it. Like you said, the baths for sure, but sometimes that poses a challenge for people. They don't always take a bath. They don't remember. You know, maybe they don't like the cost of it. Maybe in the summer they don't take baths. In the winter they do. So really it's all about figuring out what works for you. But I love the topical. I've tried every single one out there. And like you said, some of them feel like they burn. Some of them feel like you just came out of the ocean and you're all sticky. But I like the magnesium lotion from RNA Reset Remag. And you do have to wash your hands afterwards, you know, because you'll feel a little something. But it's 200 milligrams of magnesium per teaspoon, which gives you a lot of bang for your buck. And I like to put it on my feet or my knees or my elbows, like whatever. You can put it anywhere. And this is nice too. And Hannah had just mentioned like something about hormones. You think about how we put like progesterone cream or these hormone creams on our body, but the reality is the minerals are the precursors. They're really what run the show. So if we can topically infuse ourselves in minerals and absorb the minerals, we have the right raw ingredients we need to properly make our hormones in the first place. So that's another way to maybe look at it if people are familiar with that concept.
Well, are there any ferments that are naturally high in magnesium? I did a quick search here. I'm not finding that, but what I'm finding is that magnesium is really important for yeast too. And, you know, in terms of creating healthier ferments and things like this. So we know that, of course, cacao or chocolate has magnesium in it, and that is a fermented product, although not in a way that we typically think of it. But that's a really great question, Ms. Ike. I'm going to have to dig a little deeper and see if I can find that out. Probably it would be something that naturally already has a higher amount of magnesium in it, and then the fermentation might help to increase that. But to your point, you are so right, and I'm totally being a baby sometimes when I'm complaining about the magnesium because the benefit of it is so refreshing. So like bowel movements that move more easily. Yeah. Feeling more relaxed and at ease. And to your point, this idea of, you know, I think, like you're saying, energized yet calm is sort of the goal of what we should feel like on a regular basis. But because we're so impacted by stress of everything, right? Everything's impacting us, that, you know, we don't realize how much of these nutrients we're using up, and that's why we need to supplement them, right? Because I used to think, well, I should just get everything from food, and in a perfect world, in an ideal world, that's what we would do, except we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a toxic world. We live in a world full of poisons, and our bodies are doing the best they can to keep up. And so supplementing becomes really valuable because it allows our bodies to feel good and normalish, despite all of the other influences on us. So we talked about, and then you talked about the balance between magnesium and calcium. And what I noticed is my body was craving more calcium through high quality milk. So either raw milk for me, or it's legal here in California, or like A1, A2 milk, which is just easier to digest. I've had to go away from cow cheeses. I've got the goat milk cheeses instead. But I also found that, you know, taking the magnesium, like if I'm going to have the milk, I got to have the magnesium because, as you talked about, there's a really important balance between those two minerals. And so tell us a little bit about that balance.
Yeah. Should I sing my song?
Yeah, let's hear your songs.
All right. You ready? I'm not a singer, but it has to do with how we've been overcalcified. So you ready? Because we are living in a calcified world, and I am a magnesium girl. You know that we are living in a calcified world, and I am a magnesium girl. All right, that's all I got.
I love it. I sing that song too, but with bacteria. I love it. That's great.
Right. So,
well, but even think about the word calcified. Right. Calcified, it means like hardened and like can't move. So this is making a lot of sense. Of course, that's why we need it for our bones, but what happens when we're over calcified?
Well, yeah, so if you think about just the cell wall and the cell permeability, which nobody does, we don't even know what's going on inside our body. But if we don't have healthy cells that work, we aren't healthy. So we have to kind of get into the cellular talk for a second and just understand like that really runs the show. And so we have this calcium ion channel, and in order for the cell to allow only what is necessary, there has to be tons of magnesium to match whatever calcium is there. Otherwise, the cell can start to become hardened, less permeable. So if you have hard cells, what do you think that means? Like if your cell permeability...
You can't function properly, right? Because they're not able to pass the toxins, they're not able to absorb nutrients, they're not able to do their jobs.
Right.
And then they're like building up, right? Is there like a buildup of calcified material?
Yeah. So then what happens? Everything in the body slows down. So
right.
you got women who are like, I have fatigue. I think something's wrong with my thyroid. Oh, something's wrong with my adrenals. My hormones are tanked. Oh, I have no energy. I have anxiety. I have insomnia. My periods suck. I have pain and stiffness. The list could go on. And all that.
Gout, right? Isn't that like crystals of, maybe it's not calcium, but right, I'm just thinking of all the things that create the bone spurs, right, which is like an buildup of calcium on your bone that's causing physical pain. So there's just different ways in which, you know, this excess can start to build up. And so the magnesium, what I'm hearing you say, helps to soften the calcium, helps to keep it more in balance, so that way it's able to, we get what we need from the calcium, we're able to absorb the nutrients we need from the calcium, but then it doesn't allow the calcium to be out of balance and therefore cause this calcification process.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's a really big deal, especially now, because there's another piece of the puzzle that we're learning is how EMFs affect the calcium ion channel. And so it's like, okay, yeah, we already know we're missing the minerals. We already know we have too much calcium being added to our food, especially if we eat dairy. But now we also have this environmental factor coming in and messing things up. So it's really like this huge amount of things affecting just those two minerals and the balance of them alone, not to mention everything else. So it's really key to start there and start to iron it out. Haha. And that's another rabbit hole for another day. But yeah, so it's a big one, and it's really would behoove anyone to start tuning into that and at least doing a little bit more towards increasing their consumption of it, and maybe paying more attention, like, do I eat like dairy 3 times a day, and am I stiff, and you know, is there anything slowed down in my body? Like maybe I need to like take a look at this and try to see what I can do there. I do have a whole blog post and podcast on that where I dig into that more if anybody wants to check that out.
Oh yeah, Lydia is prolific. She is such a giver. Talk about empowerment through education. Her podcasts are so informative, and we'll tell people where to find that. Plus, when you sign up for your service with the HTMA testing, there's an entire course. There's just so much information that you then share so that people really become empowered and can learn for themselves, while also working with someone who's looking at their labs, who's helping them understand and unpack all of this information so they can make easy choices that aren't cost intensive, right? You know, yes, there's some supplements that are recommended, but it's not, you know, in some MLM replacing all your food with X, Y, or Z. Right. I just feel like a lot of the recommendations are so approachable and easy to incorporate, and even just adding a little bit of this can help. And interestingly about calcium, when it comes to kombucha, one of the tips for helping with fizz is to add a little calcium carbonate. And so, again, having this effect on microbes. Remember what runs our entire bodies. I know we think it's us giant human organisms, but the reality is everything's done on this microscopic microbial level. And so when we're able to give the microbes what it is they need in order to thrive, that's when our bodies are going to do a more effective job at all of the things it's doing. But like we see calcium added to orange juice, and we've had this whole fear of osteoporosis, and yet you can be taking all the calcium supplements in the world and still end up with osteoporosis because calcium, again, it's this misapprehension in Western medicine. What's the one thing? What's the magic bullet? And it never is. Of course, it's, the entire system. And as we've been talking about, it's balance.
Yep.
Over everything, balance, balance, balance. It's always about having things in balance and creating that homeostasis. So, so we've talked about magnesium. We've talked a little bit about calcium. So what about potassium, right? Let's dive into that one a little bit, unless there was more to say about magnesium or calcium.
Well, I just wanted to say really quick, like bones aren't made of calcium, because if they were, if you think about chalk, which is made of calcium carbonate only, what happens when you drop it?
Breaks.
Yeah.
Shatters.
So our bones are actually made of like 76 minerals and many other moving parts. So we gotta we gotta decondition. We gotta like really learn on, so we know how our bodies actually work. Don't listen to these freaking ads and all this stuff, and actually go and learn something about how your body works, so you're not spinning from all the crazy advice out there. But yeah, potassium's another one of my favorites. The reason why I love potassium so much is because it'll give you a very quick win in terms of how you feel, because we need so much of it. We need such a significant dose daily, in milligram amount for our physiological function. And I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of hair tests, and everyone is deficient. So,
well, we know bananas have potassium. What else are some food pathways, and then what's some good supplementation for that?
I know, bananas. So you have to eat like 8 bananas a day to get all your potassium. And
that's a lot of bananas.
I'm not a monkey, so I prefer diversity. Yeah, so mostly vegetables and fruits are a pretty good source. So if you eat a very diverse diet and you get your fresh local fruits and veggies in season, freshly picked, farmers are doing good with their soil rotation and amendation. You should be able to do a good job getting what you need. But not everyone's at that level of quality and sourcing, right? So sometimes we do need a little more supplementally, but I love things like coconut water with salt. That's not super practical though, but you're kind of pairing and marrying the potassium and salt, because the two do work together. I also have an electrolyte recipe on my website that people can make, and it's kind of like a healthy Gatorade. So you can have a more electrolyte rich drink in addition to the foods you're consuming. But why magnesium and potassium have similarities, and they help with like I just said, it's like that calm steady, it's like you're steady, you're steadfast, you have energy, but you're also calm, you're chill. So a lot of times women who have, and men, of course, sorry guys, I just work mostly with women, who have this deficiency are in more of a burned out state where they have lower energy. They get that wired but tired afternoon swing, and they're tempted to drink caffeine, but they know that's probably not a good idea. Really what they need is a nice mineral hit. So it helps with energy. It also helps with digestion. It helps with peristalsis. So if you're kind of burned out and you're slow in your energy, you may also be constipated. So both magnesium and potassium will help with that as well if you start consuming more. And then a lot of times people in this similar pattern that I'm describing will have some insomnia. So both of those minerals will really help a lot with that as well. Those are just some of the most common things that come up, yeah.
Those are huge. Those are huge, uncomfortable, obvious symptoms that, if just shifting our mineral intake can have that big of an impact. Think of, you don't have to be taking these, the Maloxes and these various chemicals to try to alleviate something that never gets to the root cause. So again, whenever we only focus on symptoms, we miss the opportunity to give the entire body an upgrade by simply giving it the the building blocks that it needs in order to really function properly and feel good. And of course, if we add those in and we're still having issues, then we can dive a little deeper and figure out what else needs to be repaired. But, you know, like I think going back to salt, people are worried, well, then I won't get my iodine, right? Because they always are talking about iodized salt. But there's lots of different ways in which we can get that iodine. In fact, we don't want too much iodine. Right. So again, everything in balance. And so even if you think, you know, oh, I'm letting go of one thing and I'm adding this in and now I have to figure out something else. But the reality is what you're doing is you're getting diversity. Human beings are not intended to eat corn, wheat, and soy right. Only, right? Like Omnivore's Dilemma talked about this, how we've become, in a way, monocropped by the crops that we subsidize. And in fact, we're supposed to get our nutrients in this diverse way. This is why we can get our omega-3s in nuts as well as in meats and things like this. And so nature really has an answer for us if we go and look to her to help us figure these things out. So let's say I'm someone who, I'm loving all this information. I want to learn more. How do I find you? How do I work with you? Where do we find Lydia Joy?
Yeah, so I have a podcast. I highly recommend people do some learning. If you're not like sure, that's where you got to start. You're going to learn a lot. There's stuff you can apply right away, and learn about how your body works. You know, I tend to get very deep, but also nuanced, and I'm not going to tell you 80 things to do. I'm going to help you with body work. So I love sharing on there, and I've had a lot of people tell me I'm listening in sequence and I've done all these things and I have all these things, you know, happening for me in my health. And so that's all free. You can just go on there, check it out, dig in. If you need more hand holding and support, or if you've done a lot of work on your own already, in terms of like changing your food and changing your environment and all that, I can work with people through the hair analysis. So that's on my website. We'll make sure we get you guys a link. And you can check that out. There's a couple ways I do that. I also work with microbes too. And so that's another level that some people need to get to as well.
I was just going to mention that because I've also done the microbiome testing with you, and that can be so important because sometimes we don't understand what's happening at that root cause level. And we might imagine, oh, I have symptoms of this or I have symptoms of that. And then it turns out, well, actually, you don't have what you think you have. And so getting that information, getting that testing. And again, it's a snapshot in time because, you know, we're not going to be able to do a test every single day, but at least it helps us understand what's going on in this moment. What are some changes I can make? Now let's take that snapshot again and see what kind of progress we've made. So I just personally feel like, you know, this type of testing is so incredibly valuable for anybody, even if you feel like, oh, I'm super healthy. But if you're experiencing any insomnia, if you're experiencing any sort of indigestion and your ferments aren't helping to clear it up or whatnot, then there could be something else going on there. And you know, fermented foods aren't something that everybody can consume either. And so this is, again, why we have so many different ways in which we can get the nutrients we not just from one or two things. So I would definitely check that out. And then your podcasts are great because they're short. So it's not like you have a really long time investment, but you really get to the point. You're great in how you deliver the information. And so people can find those on Spotify or anywhere that you get your podcasts. I highly recommend it. I love to listen to podcasts when I'm driving and I get this download of information, actionable items. It's really fantastic. And again, I love working with Lydia. She's really great. Highly recommend her services. She's a nerd, and I mean that in the best way possible. she's a total mineral nerd, and she wants to like dive in and dig in with you and help figure out what's going on. And you know, I love that about her because it means that I get to learn so much in the process as well. And I go away like ready to go look up a whole bunch more information so that I can better understand myself. So love working with Lydia. Well, thanks so much, Liz. It's really great to see you. Was there anything else you wanted to share before we wrap up today?
Oof. Even if, it's like if you're tired of the guessing game, you know, you've done the research rabbit hole, and you're trying to throw spaghetti against the wall, that's where this all comes in really and clarifies things for you. And don't be afraid to like immerse yourself in repetition of the core basic habits for health. We only touched on these things, and I have to touch on them with everyone again and again and again and again. And if that's all people did, they would definitely feel better. It's not the stopping point, but yeah. So it's really important to even start, and then don't forget to like circle back and refresh yourself about it, because people slip away from just the basics, you know?
Yes.
Right.
I have, and I can tell the difference. And then I'm like, oh, wait, let me go have some of that magnesium supplement. So the way that I take it, certainly you can do it in the kombucha, but I like to have it in a little bit of orange juice. So I do a like quick shot, and then I do a chaser. And the chaser just is like a palate cleanser. That really helps. But other things that could be great are like bone broths, and, you know, just anything that's going to help you get more of those nutrients into your body. So there's lots of food ways we can do it in addition to the supplements. But again, we're also depleted. We're also exposed to this, like you're talking about, this EMF radiation. And, you know, our bodies are electric. We have an electrical force field. And if we aren't generating the electricity from within, then our force field is diminished. Our force field is weak. And that is when we can be invaded, right? If our force field is nice and strong in whatever way, if that's bacterial force field, if that's electrical force field, if that's, you know, mental positivity, right? There's so many force fields, layers of energy that we exert, that we exhibit, that we inhabit. And when we're running all of them to their optimal levels, that's when, pew, right? We just have that energy, and we're out there, and we're, you know, changing the world for the better.
Yeah, I like to say minerals are sexy because they turn you on. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. So like if you have a low libido, or minerals can help reactivate that life force desire.
Right. Well, I mean, they turn you on completely, so it takes it all the way.
Oh, you mean like electricity too?
Yes, but both. Yeah, for sure.
Right. No, totally get that. That makes so much sense. So yes, turn on, get your body electric. That's right.
Your minerals.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Lydia. Really appreciate you, and love this conversation. So we'll look forward to chatting again soon.
For sure. Thanks for having me.